Hi, welcome to another edition of Cooking with the Cavaliers. And the Cavalier who is going to start to help me here is Boogie, otherwise known as Boogie Oogie Oogie, right? You're a good girl. She's almost 6-year-old, who is Tag's daughter and is visiting us right now. And I understand that she really loves Italian food, so I don't know, we'll find out. Anyway, tonight we are going to be making spaghetti pesto. This is made with a traditional basil pesto, which is the type of pesto that you'll normally find along the Ligurian coast in the northern part of Italy, in the area of Genoa. In that area, they very often serve it with a handmade pasta called trofie, and they put green beans into the sauce. I'm not going to do that because the trofie really should be made fresh, and that's a little bit more work. This is a very easy recipe. You want to impress people, but do it real easy. This is it. I've already put the pasta water on the stove to boil, and I haven't even started cooking yet, because it's not really cooking. The word pesto comes from a word that means to pound or crush. So it was traditionally done with a mortar and pestle. By the way, which one's the mortar, which one's the pestle? Ha! Bet you didn't know. The mortar is the bowl thing, and the pestle is the thing that you pound or crush with. I did it once with a mortar and pestle, and I got to tell you, it took a lot longer. It didn't come out quite as good, and it was a lot more work. Of course, if you want to get rid of calories, it might be a good way to do it. But a food processor just makes it so much easier. So that's the way I'm going to do it. All we need is, of course, the pasta. I measured out about 5½ ounces of spaghetti, which for those of you who live in a more sensible part of the world and use metric measurements, it's a little over 150 grams. Now it sounds like a lot more that way, 150 grams, but 5½ ounces. So we're going to stick with ounces, and that'll go in the water as soon as it starts boiling. Other than that, all you need is basil. Now there are a lot of pestos that don't use basil. In the Amalfi area, there's a lemon pesto. In some parts of Tuscany, you'll find milder pestos, like a lettuce pesto. I've made that, and it actually goes well with some dishes. But I just love the basil pesto. Smells so good. So I've got a bunch of basil. I don't know how much is in a bunch, maybe a cup or two, depending on how compact you make it. A few cloves of garlic, about a ½ cup of grated cheese. I like Romano cheese because I like bolder tastes. So the Romano cheese is a lot bolder taste than Parmesan. And about a ½ cup of nuts. Traditionally, this pesto is made with pine nuts. My wife made a suggestion one time, why don't you try it with almonds? And you know what? With almonds, the texture and the flavor, I think, personally for me, is better. So I use almonds. So first, are you ready, Boogie? Well, she's licking her chops, so I think she knows there's food involved here. So first, we want to get our dry ingredients into the food processor. So I'm going to take the skin off of the garlic, cut the garlic into little chunks, and put it into the food processor. The amount of ingredients I'm using here will make a serving of pesto sauce that's more than enough for 2 people, which is what we're serving tonight. It's quite a generous portion for 2. It's kind of a stingy portion for 3. But when I use this quantity, there's enough left over that we could actually make another meal, a small dinner or a good-sized lunch with a little bit more pasta. So I put those in there. Put the almonds into the food processor. Put the cheese in. And the first thing I want to do is to get those dry ingredients mixed well. So I'll put the food processor. I'll blend that on high for a short time, maybe a minute or so. And while that's going, our pasta water is boiling, so I'm going to put the spaghetti into the pot. Alexa, set a spaghetti timer for 14 minutes.
Spaghetti timer, 14 minutes.
She's so good, isn't she? She sets timers, you don't have to worry about her. And you're so good. What a good little girl. Yes. Are you enjoying this? Once I've blended those dry ingredients, the next dry ingredient that goes in is the basil leaves. I don't put them in right away because, oh, Apple likes basil. Oh, you love the basil. I don't put those in right away because there's quite a bit of moisture in those leaves, and if too much moisture gets released right away, it doesn't mix well. All right. So I throw in the basil leaves, but I have to destem the leaves because destem is not good for pesto. I washed them ahead of time so that they would air dry a little bit, so we didn't add too much moisture to this mix. All of what you see me doing in the food processor can be done well ahead of time. You could prepare the pesto sauce up to a certain point and then finish it whenever you want. I mean, you could do this like at 2 in the afternoon and then cook your dinner at 7 and it would be just fine. Once I have all of the basil leaves in there, I will start the food processor on low and then I'll put it on high, and I'm only going to mix it until I see clumping taking place in the food processor bowl. Then it's time to shut it. You could even hear the clumping there, but if you take a nice close look, you will see that it's kind of clumped together now. So at that point, we have to add olive oil, but the olive oil, which is absolutely necessary, is going to come at the end. We don't want to do that too far in advance. So now it's time to just wait for the pasta to be almost ready. When the pasta is down to about a minute, minute and a half to go, then I will be ready to do the rest. Well, Alexa is telling us that the timer has elapsed. Alexa, timer off. And old Tag is here with us. She's a good old girl. Tag's 10 years old, doing very well for an old girl. Anyway, before I drain the spaghetti, I need to reserve some of the pasta water. So I'm going to do that. I think I've got more here than I actually need. Now, unlike some of the other sauces that I've done, this one does not get finished in a frying pan. It gets finished in a bowl. I finished the pesto sauce with a dash of coarse ground salt, a little grind of pepper, and I tend to use more olive oil than most recipes call for. I'm pretty generous with it. I start with maybe a quarter cup to a half cup, get that going, and then I add more until I get just the right consistency, until I see it flowing nicely in there. So it looks to me like it has a very nice consistency, somewhere between liquid and paste. And I'm going to add a little bit of pesto. And a little bit of pasta water. And give that a good toss. Smelling good already. And we just repeat that a few times, adding more pesto, more water, and more tossing. And what we're going to be looking for is a creamy consistency to the sauce, not a lot of liquid. Pesto should not have a lot of liquid to it, but we do want it to be smooth. Now, if you take a look at what's there, you'll see that there is some sauce, but not a lot, and it's got a very smooth, almost creamy consistency. Maybe just, I go a little heavy on the pesto sauce, so I think I just add a little bit more. I can't go too heavy because if I don't have enough leftovers, then my wife gets annoyed that she's not going to have enough for tomorrow's lunch, so I got to go kind of somewhere in between. Now, if you want to be fancy, you could serve this on a flat plate. I kind of like a bowl myself. What do you think there, Tag? Does it smell good to you? Yum, yum, yum. Drop the piece. Can't not drop a piece of pesto. Don't want to make a messo with the pesto. I like using a fork and a spoon. Whoops. I like dropping it all over the counter. I like using a fork and a spoon because the spoon allows me to scoop up some of the sauce that's lying in the bottom of the bowl. So there we have 2 generous servings of pasta pesto. Very alliterative dish, I guess. But aside from being alliterative, it is also delicious-ative. Is that a word? I don't know. Take a little bit of that remaining sauce. It's got a very creamy consistency. You can add just a little bit more Romano cheese to the top. Oh, and I think, dogs like grated cheese. And I think Teg is smelling something that she likes. But there you have spaghetti pesto. And since I did all the work, I get to taste it. Words don't begin to describe how wonderful that is. And easy, like a half hour start to finish, that's it. So, buon appetito. Hope you get to try it. And I think Tag is going to be delighted to lick up what I dropped on the counter. Go ahead, lick it up. Good girl, lick it up.